Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 413. My opponent kicked off with e4, and I played the Sicilian, c5. A bit by mistake. I actually just played the Sicilian in the previous game, and I don't like to repeat my openings. But anyway, it happened. Knight f3 was played, and we get an open Sicilian after d6, d4, and the exchange. And now this is the most common way to play it. You bring your knight out to attack the e-pawn, and white defends. And now you have a choice of many opening systems, including the famous Najdorf, the most common opening in chess these days, perhaps. I don't know, maybe it's now a queen's pawn opening. Amongst the e4 openings, that's very popular. And g6, the dragon, or knight c6, what I played here, the classical. It's not a bad way to play. And one of the ideas is, just like the Najdorf move a6 prevents bishop to b5 check. And bishop to b5 can still be played here, but it just pins the knight and doesn't accomplish a whole lot. You can defend it easily with d7. So bishop to e3, the English system is, I see this a lot. It wasn't so common in the database, but white players seem to play this setup against all kinds of Sicilians, whether it's appropriate or not. And it's not particularly good here. You can kick the knight right away. And the intermediate bishop check is not here, so the knight has to move. And if it goes to b5, you can kick it again and gain a tempo, so that's probably not the best square. I think going back to b3 or going to f3 are the main moves here, in spite of what the database says. So if the knight goes here, you kick it, and it goes to a3. You just have gained a tempo, and probably I should follow up with b5, but black has basically equalized already. I played in kind of a relaxed fashion here. I went bishop e7, just developing. We're out of the opening book there. He goes bishop d3, and I castle. So now he goes in with knight d5. And this is my first mistake in this game. I mean, these other moves maybe were not the most precise, moving the bishop here and castling. I could have played with rook b8 and b5, be a little more active, but they weren't bad moves. But this is an actual mistake when I should just take the knight here. And it's a positional thing. After you take the knight in this position, the reason I should do it is because he's forced to take back with the pawn. That's the only way, it's the only way he has of regaining his material. And this pawn does me a great favor because it blocks the d file and prevents white from getting an attack on my weak d6 pawn. So even though this costs a tempo, and the knight will have to reroute, maybe more than one tempo, but I can get a good game from this position, and I'm just really solid with this. My weakness here is shielded by his pawn on d5. So that's the way I should have played this. Instead, I played the move b5. I was actually thinking about it during the game, but I was thinking about it backwards. I was taking the white point of view instead of the black point of view. But yeah, white doesn't really want to allow the trade, so it was a mistake for white to put the knight there at a time when it can be traded, and where a pawn recapture has to occur. Really, what white wants is to keep that file open, and if he does allow a capture, he wants to be able to retake with a piece so he can keep pressure on the backwards d pawn. Okay, anyway, I play b5 here instead, and now he takes advantage of my mistake by exchanging off the knights, and he's now once again got an attack going against the d pawn. So he plays c3 in this position, which is a good move. It keeps my knight out of these squares, and also, if I eventually get a rook to the c file, which is typically where it's going, since that's my open file, this is a very solid pawn on c3 defended by the b pawn. So good setup for white. Also gives his knight a way back into the game. Okay, I go bishop e6 with the idea of advancing my d pawn, not that far, advancing my d pawn and dissolving the weakness. And he allows me to do that. I think he didn't have any way to prevent it. So this turns out okay for me anyway. But after queen e2, here's my second mistake. It looks like this required some calculation, so this isn't an easy mistake to see. I just left the pawn there and developed a rook. but that's a mistake. I should push on to d4. And he can take the pawn. In fact, that's his best move, is to take it. And then I can recapture with the knight. And, well, I've got a symmetrical pawn structure, but I've got a very good knight here. And if he retakes, I can take back with the queen. And he doesn't want to do that anyway. That's his good bishop. He doesn't want to give it up. So for that reason, this knight is going to be here for a long time. And I've got a little more space. I'm better than white in this position. Whereas the way I played it, I left the pawn here on d5. I just developed a piece, and I let him take. And now when he takes, I'm forced to take back, and he has this move rook a to d1, and suddenly he's got the pressure. He's got this potential pin against my bishop. And if you compare this position to the one I could have had with pushing on with d5, you'll see that I really have traded a good position for a bad position by not playing that move. So that was my second mistake here. I go knight e7 to try and set up a defense. He's going to try and attack this bishop, which is kind of pinned already. He starts off with c4. I take it. He goes with the knight. Now the knight is going to get active. He can bring it in here and fork these pieces. I get my queen out of the way, so at least the bishop is free to move. But he brings his knight over here anyway, and hitting my rook and my bishop. So I go here, and he decides to exchange off the bishop. And through all of this, you see white keeps some kind of advantage. And now he goes rook c1, attacking my queen. And the next move is my final mistake of the game. And until now, I still am in the game, and I can stay in the game with a move like queen a5. But I do have to be very careful here. There are not many good squares for the queen. I didn't want to put the queen back on d7 and just run into another pin. So I went over to e7, but the queen on e7 runs into the skewer, bishop to c4. So that's an example of not doing a blunder check. So after queen e7, yeah, bishop to c4 would just be winning. Unfortunately, my opponent was disconnected at this point. So right when he was winning the game, he got disconnected. So the game came to a sudden end, but anyway, he should have gone on to win at this point. So that's where the game ended. If you have any comments, leave them in the section below, and I will see you again soon.